Oh, god damn it all. Whenever you come on a shoot, you always forget a razor and you always look like ass. Full neck beard right now. Hey guys, Ollie Cook. Hey guys, Ollie Cook here. Just thought I'd make a very quick video about just all the things that have been kind of going on in the world, and obviously how that kind of has knock-on effects to certain industries and how certain people do their jobs. I'm currently in a hotel room on location for doing some motion capture shoots. That's about as much as I'll say. Um, and yeah, we are shooting now in the I don't want to call it the post-COVID world. We're shooting in the COVID world, um, where there's obviously a hell of a lot more kind of rules and regulations, all kind of governing the kind of things that you can and cannot do, and in a time where you're supposed to be keeping a safe distance from people and being able to maintain a control of a virus. Um, it's very interesting for people like us who are in the kind of niche kind of profession that is motion capture. So as opposed to kind of like doing a tutorial or something like that, especially because I am away at this point in time, I thought it'd be nice just to sit down and just talk about what it's been like to shoot in COVID situations and not go into any specifics or anything, but just generally kind of how things have changed a little bit. Um, yeah, it's obviously been a bit of a learning curve, and that learning curve sometimes feels not steep necessarily, but sometimes a little frustrating to yourself, just because there's some things that you've really got to remember, and sometimes I'm not that great at remembering things. But yeah, and as I say, I'm not going to be going into any specifics, but this will be one of those one-off kind of videos that has its mark in time, and can always come back and take a look at this at whatever point. So yeah, how has it actually been like shooting in COVID situations? Well, you can imagine that just the general kind of process of preparing actors is a hell of a lot different now, and all of the stuff which I now do, and the book that we go by for these COVID kind of shoots, was all lovingly prepared by my lead, Ross Richards, over the course of weeks, and he will forever be in my mind the Bible of how you're supposed to be going about this stuff safely. So a lot of what I'm about to tell you is certainly the results of his hard work, but at the same time, kind of my kind of personal experiences with it. But as you can imagine, not being able to get very close to actors when you need to do things like markering, putting on a head cam, doing facial markers and stuff like that is all very, very um, I'm not even going to say difficult. It's just somewhat awkward in some situations. There are times where you don't necessarily understand or remember, the situation that you're currently in, and you just walk directly up to someone accidentally face to face, and you just want to change a battery pack, or you want to just make sure a marker's in position, and all of that FaceTime there is that there's a large potential of something actually happening within that small amount of distance. So everybody kind of tries to do their best in order to to mitigate any kind of circumstances or any erroneous kind of behavior or anything like that. So we are all being as safe as possible. Um, as I say, like I sometimes have those moments where I forget. But I think the most important thing at this point in time, when if you are having to be in close proximity for, say, shoot situations, or anything like that where you have to work with talent, is just to try and use your common sense and try and be as respectful to the actor, and give them the same amount of respect that you'd expect as well. Mistakes are going to be made. This is a bit of a different world that we're living in, especially when you're coming into close contact with people that you may not see for a couple of months, or even 6 months to a year. You know what I mean? Um, so yeah, what are some of the interesting challenges? The same markering up, extremely challenging. It's always easier to be behind somebody, and being able to do as much work behind there as possible. But eventually there has to be a point where you need to get in front of a person. You need to do some things, and there are extra kind of precautions that we're taking in order to, I keep using this term mitigating, but it's exactly what it is, to try and lessen the possibility of anything bad happening there. As you saw that I just thrown off there, masks are key, sanitizer is key. Non-latex gloves, just in case anybody does have an allergy, is key. And then you have like a bunch of extra things on top of that to consider. So, you've got the performance itself, and you need to know exactly what performers are doing, because now there is this added level of risk assessment which needs to go on for every single action which is happening throughout the day. So, are you working with two actors, for example? Do those two actors need to interact in any way? Do they get close in any way? Is there any way that you can rework the scene in a way which means that these two actors are apart from each other? So you can kind of like either move stuff later on in order to get that close performance, or when you're rehearsing a scene, is there a possibility that you can rehearse this scene very far apart, and then when it does come to, say, two people in a head cam having to converse with each other, that's the only time that you bring those two people together. So there's a lot of things to consider on that front, with the performance. On top of that, and this has been quite an interesting one for us, and this has been props. So, do you have, who are there props in the scene? First of all, is there something that they're touching? With the actors, they don't necessarily have the luxury of being able to constantly sanitize, to constantly be changing out a pair of gloves. Sure, the mask is okay. We can have a mask around, and we can try and do everything that we can there. But the hands, if you've got markers on the hands and stuff like that, you're kind of at a dead end at that point. You can't really do too much about that. I guess you could have gloves on the inside, but then you run the risk of kind of altering the performance in some degree, and then just causing your actors to have constantly sweaty hands under those gloves for a long period of time. So then, yeah, you've got to ask yourself, are the props in the scene? Who's interacting with these props? Is it a prop which is being passed from one person to the next person? How do we minimize that happens as much as possible? And then we have things on top of that to do with props, which is then, and I'll get onto this part in a second, but it is kind of the sanitization of these things post facto. So, and here's a little bit of an equation for you to think about. So, let's just say that we did have three actors. Let's go with three actors, and we obviously don't want single crew members to be interacting with three actors, right? You don't want somebody to basically go to one person and then go to the next and then go to the next. If something is going on there, then you're maximizing the amount of chance for spreading there. You're relying on that one person to constantly keep sanitizing themselves and to not make a mistake the entire time. So one of the things which my lead came up with was the idea of having a fixed crew member. Okay, so you have one fixed crew member per actor, and it seemed to work out really well for us. But then you start to roll the dice on some of these equations, like, okay, so I'd be a fixed crew member for one person. Person B would be a fixed crew member for actor B. Person C would be a fixed crew member for actor C. Okay, so what do you do in a scene where you need to get out a new prop? Let's just say it's something like a torch. Person A is going to start off with the torch, holding it with essentially their bare hand. They're then going to pass it over to person B, who's then going to pass it over to person C, who's then going to pass it back over to person A. Now that prop has gone through three sets of hands there, and then it's come all the way back to the beginning. So if you think about it from a fixed crew member perspective, who actually sanitizes these props post facto? You know, you've essentially got a big ball of cross contamination there. So again, in situations like that, you know, you've got to use your common sense, and the reality of it is us as mocap staff, as professionals, we have to do everything that we possibly can in order to make sure that these situations and these circumstances are, you know, at a bare minimum. And that is an extra responsibility that we definitely take on. So, you know, making sure that if you need to go and set out a prop layout, let's say there's a couple of chairs or something like that, and you know they're going to be sat in those chairs for the majority of the time, or you know if there's a bar or something like that someone's going to be leaning on, we need to know like who's interacting with these things. Is anybody else going to be interacting with them? And then there's that whole process of bringing out the prop, setting up the layout, but the second that you're done with it, spraying all of this stuff down with antibacterial spray, so then when you move it off the stage and you leave it somewhere, it's safe. So if somebody else does actually come along and accidentally touch it or lean on it or something like that, then you've done everything that you possibly can in the time that you've had in order to minimize the possibility of something actually happening. So it's interesting times, let me say that. I heard a couple of stories, more so recently, about you know, small things like having supervisors on set, and you know we do have a supervisor on set who is absolutely fantastic. I know he's got like a background in healthcare, I think it is, or just in generally in health. Um, and he does a mighty fine job of making sure that, you know, he's around to answer our questions, to make sure that things are actually okay, to make sure that the movements that we're making are good to go, that everything is, you know, everything is above board, and also on top of that, to pick out the times that we do make mistakes. And this kind of alludes back to what I was saying at the very beginning about just forgetting some things. There was literally a moment, I think it was yesterday, when I just wanted to go up and change something on an actor very quickly. He was an assigned actor, so he was my actor, and I was coming up to being a meter away from him until I stopped myself to turn around and get some extra protective equipment in order for me to be able to get that close to that person in order to do some changes and stuff like that. Um, but it's by the time that I turned around, though, that protective equipment was already being held by my my COVID supervisor, who knew that I think he knew I was going to catch myself, but at the same time was prepared and was ready just in case that I didn't, and was able to say, like, you know, oh, stop, we need to do this. And again, it's all for safety, right? So you can't get annoyed at this stuff. And that's why I kind of said at the very beginning, I guess for me, it was more like a personal frustration. Again, not at the situation, not at having to be safe, but not remembering, and kind of kicking myself a little bit about that. But as I did say, and you know, as I think we've all said to each other recently, this is a strange time that we're in. Um, so yeah, COVID supervisors are great things on set. Just make sure that you get somebody who actually, you know, knows what they're talking about in this field. I've heard some stories recently about people that will sit around on their phones all day and just kind of like every 20 minutes tell you to wipe stuff down. It's obviously not the best way to go about it. But yeah, if you can and if you need to, certainly try and find somebody who can actually give you some good advice in this area. And the last thing I kind of wanted to bring up is just being a decent human being, I think. I'm not going to say that something happened recently, but yeah, I've been around some people in this COVID time when it comes to you know, shoots and stuff like that, where I think, you know, people's tension is already a little bit higher, and people are always a little bit more, how can I put it? Everybody's on the ball, right? Everybody's kind of trying to um, ensure that, you know, these surfaces are being cleansed and everything is going by the book as much as possible. And again, it's not in a negative way, it's all in a positive way to try and make sure that everybody does the best job that they possibly can. So, you know, having anything on set which just adds to that tension, or you know, starts to make the environment feel a little bit more uncomfortable, if anything, during these times, you know, when you can break a joke, or you know, you do get people laughing for a second and it's just a comfortable situation where, you know, a joke is made or whatever, um you've got to let those moments happen, I would say, and you've got to let people smile, and you've got to let people remember that, you know, this is why, you know, we got into this job, because we love it, and you know, we want to have fun doing it, right? That's not to say to, you know, derail a schedule or anything like that, but it is to say that, you know, times are different, and when a job is going well, you should be allowed to breathe for even just a minute, just for a second. Just, okay, everything's going okay. Um, yeah, I know we've got a schedule to get on with, but let's just have this moment to just take a breather, break the tension for a second, and let's roll in for the next take. Okay. Um, it always serves well to just be a decent human being and to, you know, do your pleases and your thank yous. And I say that purely around this whole kind of like COVID situation where everybody's already worried to some degree, or already trying to do their best in order to show the utmost respect for both talent, other members of staff, um, and also just anybody else in the vicinity, you know, runners and stuff like that. I must have had maybe 3 or 4 cups of tea given to me today, and every single time as I saw those cups of tea coming in, it was mask on. If I had enough time, I was just kind of like sanitizing my hands and all this kind of stuff. And again, please, thank yous. You know, you're saving me with these cups of teas, you're keeping me alive and stuff like that. And that's the kind of rhetoric and the kind of you know, language that I feel like elevates a situation. And the second that the tension is kind of broken, I feel like that's when people can, I don't want to say focus, but I think everything just runs a little bit smoothly. Smoothly? Everything runs a little bit smoother. That's a better way to put it. Um, yeah, so it's getting late. I'm recording this kind of like as I'm about to go to bed, and you know, we've got more shoots ahead of us. So yeah, I just wanted to kind of make this video to kind of encapsulate this moment in time, after we've done our first, let's say, bigger COVID shoot, um, and just to put a pin in it and just to say, yep, this is what we did. This is how I felt at the time, and I think when things go back to normality, it'll either be one of two things. It'll either be that we, you know, gradually transition into this thing where we slip into our, you know, not old ways in a bad way, but we just slip into the more natural way of doing things. Or, and I think something that, you know, I think this is a better way of going about it. We'll take something from this. We'll you know, we'll keep some of these procedures in place in order to ensure that everyone feels a lot more comfortable, and you're showing a lot more respect to actors and stuff like that. So, not that we didn't show respect before, it's just that there's an extra level of it now. So yeah, that's all my thoughts on COVID shooting at the moment. I guarantee there'll be more tutorial videos coming soon, but I just wanted to, as I say, get this out and to put a pin in this thought whilst I could. So I hope you guys are enjoying all the uploads on the channel. There'll be more coming soon. And I think a very sleepy Ollie is about to sign off. So thank you for all the support, guys, and I will speak to you sooner rather than later.